you know what? I want to do this way instead of the way that it was prescribed because the way that it was prescribed doesn't work for me. And that's how grace works. Is grace is what works for you. And knowing in yourself that it's okay to say, "Hey, this is what works for me."
Okay. So being direct in what works for you. That's how
Yes.
you're defining grace. Okay.
Yes. And being intentional. It's all about intentionality with grace as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know
And
for
with,
me,
oh, pardon, go for it.
I was saying for me specifically, being intentional and giving myself that room to really take a step back and be like, okay, is this working for me? Is this going to work for me? Or do I even like this?
Mm.
Because why am I doing something that I don't even like?
This is a Lirae Journey podcast on the McKissick Health Podcast Network. I'm Dr. Sherella Cupid, your host.
The Lirae Journey podcast is a space for Black women to choose themselves. For season 3, the theme is Love and. We'll continue the Sister Circle conversations with Black women from different stages of life within various roles regarding personal, community, and professional. The intention of the season is to continue and start conversations on the meanings, experiences, and practices around love in numerous areas. This is our grounding season. Because Lirae means love is real and eternal. So sis, let's practice love. So today we have one of my newest, but yet one of the conversations that I have a lot with Dr. Anglesia Brown of just how to survive first, but also we're pushing each other to be critical and intentional about how do we live well, right? So in a couple of sentences, Dr. Brown, can you introduce us to yourself?
I am the newly minted Dr. Anglesia Brown. I am a mother, sister, scholar, and community activist, and that's just me.
Thank you, Anglesia. And can you share what brings you to the Sister Circle space?
So, what brings me to the Sister Circle space is that Black women are often a muted voice, and we are the foundation of everything that has happened in this country, in the world for that fact. So that's what brings me to the space because we need to be heard. And I feel like the time is now, especially for Black women.
Thank you, sis. So in thinking about you being a newly minted PhD, right? If you can title this season of your life, what title would you give it?
Grace with expectations. And I know those two kind of probably sound like they don't go together, but the reason they go together for me is because I extend grace, but in return, you got to know how to treat me. So there's an expectation on how I need to be treated in order for you to receive grace because you don't give grace to people that disrespect you.
Can you define what grace is or what grace looks like for you?
So, what grace looks like for me is given permission to ground yourself, given permission to look back at those things and say, hey, you know what? I want to do this way instead of the way that it was prescribed because the way that it was prescribed doesn't work for me. And that's how grace works. Is grace is what works for you. And knowing in yourself that it's okay to say, hey, this is what works for me.
Okay. So being direct in what works for you. That's how
Yes.
you're defining grace.
Yes.
Okay.
And being intentional. It's all about intentionality with grace as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me,
oh, pardon, go for it.
I was saying for me specifically, being intentional and giving myself that room to really take a step back and be like, okay, is this working for me? Is this going to work for me? Or do I even like this?
Mm.
Because why am I doing something that I don't even like?
Yeah. So in applying grace to yourself, what happens when you say, "Oh, I don't like this"? Like what happens next for you?
I stop doing it. And it's just that easy because I'm like, why am I causing myself such discomfort? I'm supposed to be comforting me. I mean, like, this is my own space, my body, my life. And why am I uncomfortable? No, not doing it. And I think also in this season of my life, with my daughter being an adult and me having raised a whole human being, I'm like, I make good decisions because my daughter is 26 years old. She's a social worker, a licensed social worker, and she's getting ready to have her master's. So I did all right.
You did
So,
all right, yeah. You did well, mama, as they said. Okay.
so if I don't like it, I ain't doing it.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned like some self reflection questions, right? Like, is this working for me and is it going to work for me, right? So at the point at which you realize something is working for you, like what does that look like? What does that feel like when you sat in that space and you arrived there?
A real celebration. Because I feel like we don't celebrate enough as a people. And what I mean by that is every year is a blessing. You made it around the sun a whole nother year. You know, you could have had some setbacks, but you still made it through. So we need to celebrate every year, whether it's a small celebration or a big celebration. I am very big on celebrating and gathering and bringing people to spaces of celebration because the more you celebrate, the more that you can allow joy to start to resonate. And of course, we know there's a difference between happiness and joy. I feel like joy is the space where you enter that contentment with yourself and with others. So, yeah, you can be happy all day long, but I'm working on my joy, sis. That's just what it is for me.
Okay. That internal contentment. Okay. All right. Thank you. So considering this season is titled Grace with Expectations, how are you defining love?
So, love is an action word for me because you can't say that you love me and treat me any kind of way. But I also feel like love is boundless. So, my definition would be that love is boundless because if you think about the body of water, how it continues to go and go and go, I think that's my definition of love, that love is boundless and it should continue to grow.
Okay. Boundless growth.
Yeah.
So in defining boundless growth as your definition of love, you just completed your doctoral program. Congratulations again. Right.
Thank you. Woo.
What a journey, I'm sure. Pardon. How did you apply love to yourself? Because the PhD process can be a trying process for many of us. How did you practice love in going through the PhD process?
So on the journey, you know, you read tons of books and articles and tons of books and articles. But I came across Tricia Hersey's book, Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto. And it's all the things that we know already. So it's a reminder of the things that we need to do. So I really started to practice what's in the book in terms of what it looked like and what it meant for me. And rest is our resistance as Black women. And we work and work and work and work, and we go by others' definitions of what should be done. But when we need to say, hey, stop, stop, stop. No, this is how I'm moving. And even with that, during the PhD journey, I was working full time. I was a full-time student. I went all year round and I got to a space of exhaustion. And I was completely burned out. I mean, just completely burned out. But I had 990 hours of sick time. And I thought to myself, why on earth do I have 990 hours of sick time and I'm burnt out? Sis, you need to rest and resist this whole notion of grind culture where you have to be doing all the things all the time. Most folks don't have a full-time job and do a PhD. So I took a step back because I'm also an insulin dependent diabetic. My health had started to fail me. I said, I can't do both of these things at once. And it's okay not to do both things at once. So take a break, work on your health, and work on your dissertation. Because the folks at your job, they'll repost you, they'll repost your position, and you'll be dead. And that was also a wake up call for me because literally a woman died on the job. Literally. She went home one weekend and they said she had a sudden serious illness and she died. She had been at the university for close to 40 years. She was one of the people that they always called on, and she just gave and gave and gave. And you could literally see the exhaustion on her physical appearance. And when she died, her name was Gail. I said, oh, no, y'all won't Gail me. And that quickened me to take the time off to take care of me.
Wow. Ooh, all right. I hope her legacy is blessed. And thinking about how people can literally work themselves to death, right? It's not something that's like a slang term, like people literally do work themselves to death. For me growing up, my mother was always intentional saying like, oh, if you're tired, like go lay down, go take a nap, take a rest, right? Don't prioritize work so much that it becomes a detriment to your health, because she literally would say, very similar to you, oh, you can die today and tomorrow they're going to replace you, right? So like going in with that mindset of how capitalism breeds like humanity has a price tag, right? Like our worth is all often connected to our network, our financial network. So therefore, like, oh, you're replaceable. You're just a cog in the machine. Like we're gonna put another cog, right? So, and thinking about the ways some of us get treated more as replaceable compared to others, right? Why would I sacrifice my well-being for a system that at the foundation does not care about humanity and damn sure don't care about Black women, right? So, and thinking about living through that experience and experiencing, unfortunately, a colleague who passed due to exhaustion. It could be, one of the symptoms of whatever the sudden illness is. What lessons are you not only telling yourself, but trying to tell your daughter, because she is a licensed social worker, and that's really a demanding role, right? What lessons are you thinking about potentially imparting on to your daughter, or have you imparted to your daughter from living through that experience?
Yes, because my daughter was working in children and family services, and that's exhausting within itself because of all of the dynamics that go on in families. And if a social worker is involved, there's issues in the household. So she had one particular case, and I was really concerned because she had to take a child out of the home and put him in foster care. And she was really concerned about this little boy, and she looked at 3 different foster homes before she placed him because she wanted to be sure. And in that time, because she was waiting to find the right space for him, she kept the little boy with her. So I'm like, she's in her 20s. She's going to be working for quite a long time. I talked to her. I was like, is this the type of social work that you want to stay into forever? Because it's so grueling, it's so demanding, not only physically, but emotionally. And she called me and she cried when she finally dropped him off, because she said, here he is, 6 years old, extremely intelligent, and his home life was just messed up. And it was a lot on her. And since then, she's transitioned to the geriatric side, and it's a lot easier, that space, because you're dealing with people who have already had the opportunity to live their lives. versus those trying to get a start at life. And I see that I can see in her physical appearance and just in her posture that that's lighter work for her. And that's taking off the load. So I also tell my daughter that I don't want her to be me, because the first time that I ever worked one job was in 2017. My whole adult life, I worked multiple jobs, and I didn't realize how exhausted I was until 2017, because I was a single mom. My daughter was very active. So I just did all the things because that's what I thought that I had to do. And when I finally had one job, I was like, oh, I like this. This is good. And now I'm at a stage where that one job ain't gonna even work me to death. So that's the things that I'm trying to pass on to my daughter. I want to end the legacy of exhaustion. And I don't want her to participate or even think that she has to get involved in grind culture.
And that follows up nicely to the next question, which is, what have you unlearned concerning love and parenting?
So what I have unlearned, and I tell people who have younger kids, is there is no perfect parent. As much as you try, there is no perfect parent. But by the same token, you only get one time for your kid to be 5, only one time for your kid to be 6. So being intentional in your parenting is also something that I pass along. And one of the things that I had to unlearn with my daughter is I made it to where she didn't see me. She didn't see the tired side of me, or she didn't see the side of me. She always saw me going, going, going. So she didn't think that I really had emotions. We had a conversation about this probably about a year ago. She said, I never saw you really be emotional, but I had to compartmentalize as a younger mother to get everything done, but I missed showing the importance of vulnerability. So just really talking to her about, now they call it your soft space or whatever, but being vulnerable and showing people that you need help or asking for help, because I did not do that. And I don't want her to be that person.
Thank you. And after that conversation, have you seen a shift in yourself? Like, are you more vulnerable, for example, with your daughter? Are you more vulnerable in your sister circle space? Like, what are some of the consequences of that conversation that you had with your daughter?
I am absolutely more vulnerable with her, but my sister circle spaces have always been a haven for me, because at the time when I was raising my daughter, we were all raising our children at that same time. So that was the space that we really kind of dug in and sunk in, like, ooh, girl, do you know what this kid did today? Mm-mm, mm-mm. And I'm the sister in the circle. I'd be like, you know what? I would be asking for a blood test, because can't be my child, but I know she my child because I'm the one I gave birth to her. Like, what is she doing? So, and that's another thing in motherhood that you need to have, is that group of sisters who you can be real with and be like, I don't even like this kid today. Not to say that you don't love the kid, but you don't like the kid today. And that's okay, because every day as a mom, you are not going to like that kid. You're just not. And for somebody to sit up and say they love it, they like that kid all the time, sis, you a lie. You don't like that kid all the time. You do not. You just don't.
Yeah.
And no kid is perfect.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in considering like where you are right now in regards to motherhood, what are you learning concerning love and sisterhood, right? You said that space offered you the space to be emotional, vulnerable. What are you learning right now in this season concerning love and sisterhood?
Right now, since my circle is growing and sisters and in love, just learning how to receive it. Because I know a lot of times in my sister circles, I was always like the giver, the one like, okay, we need to get together, we need to do this, we need to do that. But now I'm finding in my sister circles, people are giving to me. And that's a space that I haven't been in often. And just really taking that in, because that can become, it's overwhelming and it puts you in a space of gratitude. And I just get emotional thinking about it, because like it's sisters out here that are willing to give just as much as receive. And that is a blessed space to be in. It really is.
We met through a mutual sis, Dr. Asha Winfield, at the AERA conference, Association for Education Research. So in thinking about the sister circles that you have that contain academics or researchers, what are you learning about academia and love?
Whew. So listen, that's a heavy hitter. This might be we might need to have a whole season about that. Okay.
Okay.
So I guess I'm gonna start at the beginning, well, kind of the beginning, in terms of how me and Asha met. We met at the women's brunch, and they didn't expect all the people to show up that showed up. So we had a horrible little brunch. It was just pitiful. And me and Asha ended up sitting next to each other, and we started chatting, started talking, and we said that we were going to keep in contact with each other. And I think it was her first year as a first or second year as a professor, and it was like my second year as a PhD student. So she just would encourage me and encourage. I was like, this is for real. Because you meet people that say, oh, we're going to keep in contact, and you try to keep in contact, and it just kind of like fades off. But no, it became a true sisterhood. Like, just from that by chance brunch, sitting next to each other over a horrible brunch, like that little dry egg. And look, boom, a whole sister. So, in terms of academia, I have been blessed because I've heard horror stories in terms of how other Black women scholars treat each other. But I believe it's a different generation of scholar coming through. I really do, because we love on each other. And I think some of those from the past can take a page from us, because I believe it's genuine and it's authentic. And we've seen what has happened to other Black women scholars, the isolation, the exhaustion. So I think we take care of each other. So this new generation, we're into the softness. We're into saying no to grind culture. We're into rejecting the legacy of exhaustion. So I think us being in the know transcends how we treat each other.
That's good. I don't know where I got this from. I can't remember currently, but they say every time you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else, right? So the fact that you're mentioning you believe that this current generation, like we're intentional about saying no to exhaustion or the grind culture, we're saying yes to ourselves and to being well, right? Because if you keep saying yes to, oh, like I'm gonna show up for everything and I'm gonna be in all of these committees, right? And I'm gonna mentor all of these folks, but yet we don't have the capacity to do it. We're saying no to our wellness. We're saying no to our personal lives, right? Which has its own negative consequences. But to be intentional now, to say no to the ground culture, the like, this equals my worth, quote unquote, like what's on my CV is my worth, but not the totality of my whole lived experience. It allows us to say yes to ourselves and to really push back against the expectation that people got to do the most in order to be seen. Right. So in thinking about that, what are you unlearning in regards to academia and love? Like, is there anything that you thought when you started your PhD program, like, oh, this is what it has to be, this is what it's going to be. Now you're on the other side of it. Like, what are you intentional about now?
So the unlearning part is not having any, like academia, you can't be rigid because people probably think that, we're rigid people as researchers, and we kind of are, but we kind of can't be because you don't know which way your path is going to go. You could write something, you might think that it's really profound and it should take your career to the next space. But then you get it back like, they telling you, no, sis, this is garbage. And you have to, it's that constantly self-checking and reflecting and all of that. So I guess I'm not really unlearning anything right now. I'm more or less learning and being intentional and recognizing that the path is not straight. It has some curves, it has some turns. So just being in the moment and letting what's going to happen. Because that piece that you think might be garbage might be the next profound thing. That's just like I presented at AERA this past year, and I was like, I don't even know how this got accepted because I was not really feeling. I just wasn't feeling the paper at all. I just wasn't, and I still really ain't feeling that paper. But I'm gonna push forward, and because it's a co-authored paper, and I'm just gonna push forward, and I'm gonna do it. And that's another thing that I learned, which is very, very, very important that I didn't think about. Just because somebody is your sister scholar, don't mean that you can always work with them. It don't mean that y'all can always write together, because when you're writing with somebody, it has to be a certain type of relationship. Like your relationship could be, you can have a good relationship with them outside of writing, but inside of writing, y'all not the same. And that's okay, because we have sister scholars for different things. So yeah, I think I answered the question in a roundabout way. I don't know. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't.
I think you did. I think that in thinking about the work that we do, I often do work in collaboration. Like we've worked together, we'll continue to work together in the future in different like capacities. Learning who you can work with in certain capacities is a part of the process. Like it doesn't mean that just because you can't write with that person that they're not an excellent scholar, but it just means you can't work with them in regards to writing or conducting research, and that's okay. So I think it's like going through that process and learning, because I find that not just with Black women, but just people in general in society, we're not trained to enter into the space to address like tension or discomfort with the objective of being at peace. I think when people see discomfort or conflict, it's like, oh, we have to be at war. So I think like we've been socialized to think conflict equals war or difference equals war or dissension versus, oh no, this is just a different way And perhaps we can compromise, or perhaps we can't, and that's okay. So I think that's where some of the tension comes in, because we haven't been socialized to go through conflict to arrive at peace. Like war seems to be very normalized in society, whereas peace isn't. So I think it trickles or it connects to the ways in which we work and operate, which can be unfortunate sometimes, right? It's just like, okay, like I wish this would have turned out differently versus how it turned out. So yeah.
True. I think that's good. That's real good. We are socialized for war and not peace. See, I'm unlearning. I guess that could be an unlearning over here. Okay.
Yeah, it's a journey, sis. It is. I know for me, it's like, okay. Like now, like how many wars and conflicts are showing up on our feed, right? Even like within the US, I would argue that we never arrived at peace within the US.
Mm.
So like, what does it mean for us to feel as though as Black bodies that we never arrived at peace? And then to tackle on international wars that are going on, whether or not it's quote unquote official or unofficial, like it does something to your psyche, it does something to your physicality that is manifest in all areas of our life, that I would argue. So like, what does it mean for us to do research, to love to do research, to want to do research, right? To have that as a passion, as a calling, as a source of income, like all of those things in varying degrees. But yet we don't know how to be at peace with ourselves. I don't know.
That's deep. But what I would say is that we continue to have our Underground Railroad to peace. And what I mean by that, by continuing to have these conversations and continuing to support one another as Black women, as Black people, period. And that's the way that we get to that peace. Because one of the things that I think we get involved in is we see all this stuff going on around us, and they always want to call us in when all this other stuff is going on. And I'm like, nah, I'm over here being Black. Okay. I can't get involved in that because I already got a war going on. I'm being Black. And it's not a war within myself, but it is a war with the country. It's a war with my community. It's just a war, but I'm at peace. So I think that we need to build that railroad to continue to have that peace and say, nope, not today. Because that's one of the things, just kind of going back a little bit in terms of knowing when to say when. One day I did a count of all the committees that I was on at work. I said, nah. My grandmother used to have this expression like, piss on that. That was the expression. Oh, no, piss on that. And I was like, oh, nah, piss on all of this because I'm dialing it way back. I was on a total of 10 committees. I'm sorry, I'm at capacity. I am and that's just it. I'm at capacity.
Yeah.
And when people don't respect that, then it's like, no, that's a hard no for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I had in one of the podcast episodes, the conversation with Dr. Tasha Ely Kelly in regards to like boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that she said, like, I'm intentional about working on boundaries in this season of my life, because boundaries mean that I'm respecting myself. And to respect yourself is to love yourself. And if someone can't respect your boundaries,
They
then
don't
it's
love
like,
and piss on them and that. How about that?
So I think that is a beautiful way to look at it, right? Like, how are we practicing the underground real world in this era, and like, what does that look like? What does peace mean for marginalized folks, or like, can we or how do we arrive at peace, right? So even though it may not seem something that is as tangible, should we continue to work towards it? Or what does it mean to decide to continue to work towards this, even though everything else is saying that war has to be the consequence? Yeah.
And I like to frame it as radical peace. And I know people probably wouldn't put those two words together. And the reason why is because you have to speak out about the things that are going to bring you peace. Just like I told my supervisor one day, like I had enough of all of the foolery that was going on. And she sent me a message, and I put this in writing. And some people probably would feel like you out of order, but that's not the first time I've been told that, and I'm sure it won't be the last. But she asked me to do some type of task, and I told her, "I'm sorry, but right now I'm resting and resisting oppression for the rest of the day." Yeah. So, and I logged off because it was too much. Now, I will say that I work in a unionized environment. I will say that. And I will say that I have academic staff at my institution have a form of tenure called employment security status. And I have achieved that. So I do have a certain level of comfort when it comes to those types of things because I do have a union and I do have my tenure. So I also feel like that is also a way of the resistance is because I have that, I'm going to push it so those coming behind me don't have to push where I push. They're already coming into a space that the people know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's the way I sister in regards to like, how am I creating space and opportunities that I wish I had, so that way when there, it becomes normalized to be someone who is intentional about sisterhood. Like, I can't just say, oh, like, sister circles is one of the ways in which I do life, but I'm not creating environments for sister circles to thrive in. So I often think like that too, like, okay, like, what opportunities do I have that I can share with other sisters? Like, how am I being intentional about being someone of influence, of change in my spheres of influence, as they say? So I think that's beautiful that you realize where you are, because there is a level of protection and security once you do reach certain statuses. You said you're in a unionized position. If someone has tenure, for example, right? If it has certain clauses in people's employment contracts, that they have a level of protection compared to people who are in spaces that are not unionized, or they're not on the tenure, they haven't yet achieved tenure, right? Like, how are we using our points of security to make sure that it's easier for people who don't have this point of security right now in the present, and also so that systems are changing so that the things that we are fighting for in 2024, they're not fighting for in 2050, for example. So I think that's beautiful that you have that lens. Yeah.
And I also think from that lens, not only as a sister, but as a mother who has a daughter, that is coming through the employment ranks, and thinking about it just from my narrow lens of my motherhood, I can't have my baby working in spaces like this. I got to make it at least better for her, because I'm thinking for my direct lineage and those coming behind me, those that are not who blood relatives, but they are kin, if you will.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I agree. I totally agree with that statement. And it connects to, like, what advice would you offer sisters concerning sisterhood, parenting? Like, what advice would you offer younger sisters?
I've said this time and time again. I don't even know when I started saying it, but it is what I live by. Do what you can live with, and if you can't live with it, don't do it. And that's my advice.
That's good. I'm going to have to write that down.
Yeah, do what you can live with. If you can't live with it, don't do it.
Mm-hmm. And for you, what does it mean to live with something?
It means that this is living in it is going to be a space that you spend an extended amount of time in it or forever. And can you deal with that being a forever thing or an extended period of time thing? So you better make sure in that doing what you can live with, it's a time of reflection. You know, it's not something that just sounds catchy. Oh, I'm just saying it. No, it's also a time of reflection. Do what you can live with. You have to stop and say, hey, I'm doing this, but can I live with it? Here are the consequences. Because, you know, for every decision we make, it's either a reward or a consequence. So that's my one line piece of advice.
Do what you can live with. Okay.
And if you can't live with it, don't do it.
That's it. Okay. And connected to, you say you tell that to everyone, but thinking about intergenerational conversations, because you said your grandma said, piss on that. Okay. Like, we're not finna do it. Right. Are there any conversations that you think we should be having that we're not having with our aunties, our grandmamas and them, right? Our mamas concerning sisterhood and parenting?
So I was so blessed and so fortunate to learn sisterhood from the very beginning of my being. I witnessed my grandmother having her sister friends. I witnessed my mother having her sister friends. So it was only a natural progression for me to have that. And I've taught it to my daughter because she has her own sister friends that she has decades with already because she has a group of friends that I was pregnant with their mothers. We were all pregnant at the same time, and they're all like 7 months apart. So she has that core base of her sisterhood from the beginning, which is very important because my daughter is an only child. So that, and she was the only grandchild for a long time. She didn't have any cousins until she was 12. So carving out those relationships were very important, but I think it's just a generational thing that we learned how to have sisterhood. Because I can remember my grandmother on the phone with her friend Marguerite, and they would just be, when I say kikiing, and it would just be a good time just listening. I didn't realize what that I was being a part of a legacy and a tradition that would carry when I was listening to my grandmother and Marguerite on the phone, but it carried through, or listening to my mother and her friends on the phone, or my mother and her friends would come over, or my mom and her friends, they went on little girls trips. So all of that was just rich for me. And it's, you know, a part of the legacy of who we are.
That's beautiful. A legacy of sister friends.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in going through your doctoral program, did you have to have any conversations with your mom, your grandma, your aunties concerning love and academia? Like, what did that space look like for you?
So my grandmother, she passed on some years ago, but I would say my grandmother was one of my best friends. So hearing her in the back of my mind, my family calls me Angel, and not just Angel; they call me Angel Brown. Like, I don't know why but anyway, Angel Brown. I can hear her in the back of my mind. Oh no, Angel Brown, piss on that. You got to go a different direction. So, like, here, even in my research, when I'm thinking, like, I would be thinking about it, I could hear my grandmother. No, that's not you. Piss on, go somewhere else. Like, I could really hear her and feel her. And I think what brought her into the space is this it's a bookcase now, but it was my grandmother's china cabinet.
Mhm.
And I repurposed it. I sanded, I painted, and she gave it to me before she passed away. And having this china cabinet, aka new bookcase, I felt all my Ruby Reed energy coming through. And she was a force to be reckoned with. Okay. This was a woman who, my grandfather passed away when my mother was 10. So my grandmother was left with 8 children. 8 children. And she was 39 years old. No, she was 41 because my uncle was 2 and she had him at 39. So here's a 41-year-old woman, widow, lost the love of her life with 8 kids. And I told my mother, I was like, some of y'all would have been at the fire station. Some of y'all would have been with an uncle or auntie. 8 kids? She raised them all. They were all under one roof. It was just like, she's an amazing woman. But the thing about this amazing woman, she didn't play. She had a gun and a knife in her purse. And baby, she would pull it out. I remember one time, because it was so many grandchildren, having 8 kids, you got a ton of grandkids. So she would keep the girls one weekend and then she'd keep the boys one weekend. So there was a serial killer out in the area, and his name was Coleman. I remember, never forget it. And we were all scared. We called my grandmother Dear. I was like, well, Dear, what happens if he come in here? She was like, y'all don't have anything to worry about. Dear is going to protect you. And if he bring himself in here, he going to get shot by Dear. And I was like, laid on down and went to sleep because I was confident in knowing that Dear was going to protect me, because if Coleman came in there, he was going to catch a hot one. And she put that gun on the, because we all slept in her living room. She had a pull-out couch because we was all just frantic. She had her gun on the coffee table and all her grandgirls, and we were all sleeping on the pull-out couch with our grandmother, feeling so protected.
What a memory.
It is. And she would have shot him. She would have. And then my mother, in terms of this PhD journey, my mother is a woman of faith, and she prayed me through. And her faith is what built my faith, in knowing that this PhD thing would come to an end. And not only is she a woman of faith, but she is an excellent cook. And I love homemade rolls. So sometimes I would look up and here come my mother with them homemade butter rolls, and just, she makes the best homemade honey butter. So I could read a little more, write a little more, and dip my little bread in the honey butter and just be just that comfort. So my mother literally prayed for me through this journey. Not just, oh, I'm praying for you, baby. No, some days she'd have to come through the door, we holding hands and praying, because I just did not think that I was going to make it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Different forms of protection. If I need a gun or a knife, or if I need to pray or food, okay? All of the above. We need all of the above.
I'm covered.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. I hope that you have the conversations, like we say, like give folks their flowers while they can still smell them. That now that you're on this other side, like what would it mean for you to like thank your mom, to say thank you for praying me through, beating me through the process, because I can echo that, right? Like I'm grateful that throughout my PhD process that I do have a mother who prays and a mother who cooks. Because sometimes that's what you need in order for someone to love you. Is like, can you fill in the gaps that I can't fill in for myself, but I know that I need it? So it's beautiful that your mother can speak to you and nourish you both in physical and the spiritual ways. Sometimes when you're not even asking for it, like explicitly asking for it, but like a mother knows, right? Like you're a mother and you know that, right? So I'm grateful to hear that you have those experiences and you're still carrying your grandmother's legacy with you. Like, what does it mean to live with someone even in the afterlife? So the fact that you said like you still hear your grandmother's voice and she becomes a guiding voice to you in this process is beautiful. Yeah. So in thinking about folks who are pouring into you, considering the roles that you have, right? You started off saying like, I'm a mother, I'm a researcher, I work in academia as a staff person. Considering all of these roles that you have, what is a reminder to yourself to circle back to yourself to feel grounded?
I would say the biggest reminder to myself is to pay attention. Like I'm very aware of my body and the things that I need, and I can feel when no, this is too much. I'm going to end up sick if I do this, or being exhausted. So I listen to my body, and I like to remind other sisters to listen to their bodies, because it might start off, oh, my neck is really stiff. That's your body telling you, sis, you need to slow down. But we don't listen when it's our neck is stiff. Ooh, I got a pain in my leg. We still keep on going. But now the pain in your leg, the tension in your neck, now I'm having headaches. Now your edge is falling out. I mean, when you gonna stop? And this is all lessons that I learned from going through them, because the buck stops when my edges start falling out now. Like I can have a little stiff neck, my leg can hurt, but them edges, no ma'am. No ma'am.
Stress will not snatch my edges.
Stress will not snatch my edges.
That's for real. Yeah. Definitely can echo that sentiment. The ways in which our bodies tell us to sit down, and when we don't listen, we will get sat down, right? So I was like, I don't want to get sat down. Let me just listen.
As my little niece say, laid down. Now I'm a laid down. You listen, your body will not sit you down, it will lay you down.
That's right. Thank you, niece. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So I ask this to every sister that comes on for this season. How do you know someone loves you?
Action. I go back to love is an action word. It's a verb. Show me that you love me. And I don't mean that in the sense that people may think that it's by somebody giving you something or anything like that. But showing me that you love me could be you sending me a text, checking in. Showing me that you love me could be, hey, you want to go meet up for lunch today or dinner or whatever? Just those little things. Because I know that my love languages are spending time and affection. So, but I'm very big on, you love me, spend some time with me.
Intentional quality time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in thinking about love, you define it as an action, spending time, the little things that add up. When do you feel like you're loving yourself the most? Like, what does that look like, sound like, feel like? Like, take us in through those senses.
When I feel like I'm loving myself the most is when I am resisting capitalism. When I stop and say, you know what? Not today. Because I'm going to be honest, and I know people probably be like, oh, some days I wake up and I look around, and you know how you could just feel certain things? Unfortunately, I will not be able to come in today. And I take those days. Am I sick? Yeah, sick of them at that job. But, and I know with me being in that space, it's not going to end well that day. So why not just stay home, protect my peace? And that is one of the times. And when I'm at home that day, I don't tell anybody that I'm home. Some days I just stay here all day. Other days I'll get up, and I love Menards. And I know people are like, why is she in Menards? But just to walk through the different aisles of Menards or the store at home, that just gives me peace. So I'm real intentional about having those little spaces to have peace and protect my peace. And if it means calling off, that's what I do.
Thank you. You said I'm not having, what was it, 990 hours piled up again?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And I know some places, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, not at Wayne State. They'll let you carry all them hours.
Okay. That's a blessing.
It is. But guess what? Since I'm about to be in the negative hours, okay? That time. Like, why not? Because the thing about the sick hours, like you can't cash them out. So I feel like if I don't use them and I go to another job, I'm giving away money.
Mm-hmm.
That would be foolish.
Yeah. Exactly.
Money.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of resistant capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, ma'am. No, sir. Not giving it away. Mm-mm.
Okay. So thank you again, Dr. Brown, for taking the time out to share in regards to your experiences concerning love, sisterhood, parenting, and academia. Where can the folks find you in regards to your social media? Like, do you have any public platforms that you're open to sharing?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn at Anglesia Brown, PhD. And if you just want to have a little bit of a good time, you can find me on Instagram because I love a good reel and a good meme. So Anglesia 313 on Instagram. But I will put a little warning out there. My Instagram is for pure fun.
Got it. You said what you said, compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, LinkedIn, you can catch me at PhD in. Instagram, you can catch me Anglesian.
Okay. I love it. So in thinking about you finished your dissertation recently, are you working on any recent projects or do you have any services that you would like to share?
So I am working on completing my new business called Edits. So it's for, professional editing, whether it's for, academic work or whether it's for an obituary, because I know people don't like to talk about death, but everybody died. And what I cannot stand is a bad obituary. So that's how, listen, people, you gonna die. Don't let them folks that don't know how to conjugate a verb write your obituary. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you spell that?
EDITS. No, EDITZ edits. So I'll have more information in the upcoming weeks.
Okay. And I'll definitely make sure to include all of that in the description box. So again, thank you, Dr. Brown, for sharing your experience today. So as I always sign out, love is real and eternal. In community, peace.
Hey sis, subscribe, comment, and leave a 5-star review if you enjoy the show. To encourage other sisters on their journey, share the show with them and tag @Lirae Journey on Facebook and Instagram. I'll see you in the chats. Listen to the Lirae Journey podcast on all platforms and follow us on social media @Lirae Journey. You can also find us online at podcast.mckissickhealth.com. That's podcast.mckissickhealth.com. So come on in.